This is the Global Wealth Show with Grant Conness and Andrew Costa.
At a young age, people very close to me were really hurt by the financial markets, and that drove me to be in this industry.
The vision was to change the industry.
Everybody calls this your nest egg, and I think of it as so much more than that. This is your life savings.
So being that guide, that coach for our clients is why we do what we do.
What we do could change someone's life.
The Global Wealth Show begins now.
I'm Megan Mozak. Welcome to another edition of the Global Wealth Show, a show that helps you plan for the retirement you want. Today, Grant Conness and Andrew Costa from Global Wealth Management right here in South Florida will talk about the things successful investors never do. In Global Perspective, Grant will discuss inflation and the top concerns people have heading into retirement. And then in our Ask Global Wealth segment, Grant and Andrew will answer questions from viewers just like you. Grant, Andrew, great to be back with you.
Thanks, Megan.
Great to be here, yep.
As investors, we're exposed to a lot of advice from famous investors, maybe Peter Lynch or Warren Buffett. They want to tell us how to do it right. You guys say, though, there are several things that as investors that we should never do.
Definitely, Megan. Whether you're Warren Buffett or those famous types of investors, or you're just kind of your everyday retiree, there are some essential things that you absolutely can't ignore. And the first one that you can't ignore is having a plan in place. We know we need to have a plan in place when we retire. That's one of the most important things. The second thing that you can't ignore is risk. At this point in your life, you're retired, you can't have too much risk in your portfolio. It can just devastate you going forward. You don't want to ignore inflation. I mean, inflation is the silent killer of any retirement plan. And you can't ignore fees, because fees can just eat away. This industry is full of this stuff, this high cost product stuff. We want nothing to do with this stuff. And what it does is it just eats away, these fees eat away at your income and your investments, and it can just change the dynamic of your retirement. So the other thing you can't ignore is taxes. Taxes are one of the largest expenses that you will actually have in retirement, so you need to have a tax plan in place. And you can't ignore Social Security. Social Security is the main pillar. It's the foundation of your retirement. So there's all kinds of planning you can do around Social Security and make sure that you maximize the after-tax benefit of Social Security. And the final thing that you can't ignore is you can't ignore having multiple streams of income. You don't want to be the person that's stuck there with just one stream of retirement income.
Andrew, that's a lot of things we should never do. Grant, I heard Andrew say right off the top, you should never invest without a plan.
Absolutely, Megan. You know, having a plan in retirement is absolutely essential. I mean, think about it. With anything in life, to be successful, you have to have a plan. I mean, think about businesses. Successful businesses have a business plan in place. Think about it in sports. You know, successful teams have a game plan in place. Well, it's the same thing with your investments and your retirement. You have to have a game plan in place to get you from point A to point B successfully. The problem is a lot of times people are going into retirement and they might have done a good job saving, where they have statements and they have investments, but they do not have a plan in place. And they're literally flying by the seat of their pants in retirement. And we see it all the time. And the thing is, it's not really the investor's fault. It's the advisor's fault a lot of time. And what I mean by that is, you know, 100% of financial advisors in this industry specialize in investment planning, you know, finding the best stock, the best mutual fund, the best annuity. Whereas less than 6% of all advisors in this industry specialize in advanced planning. And advanced planning would be things like not only investment planning, but also income planning. You know, how do you properly take your income in retirement? What are those different sources? Social Security, pension, investment income. How does that all come together to get you to and through retirement? Tax planning would be another one. You know, how do you become as tax efficient as possible with your investments? Healthcare planning is another one. Things like Medicare and long-term care. How do you properly plan for that in retirement? And then estate planning, your trusts and your wills, and making sure that your assets pass as efficiently, as effectively as possible to your beneficiaries. So making sure that you do take the time to do that is absolutely essential to have a successful retirement.
Yeah, and exactly. The time to do it is, I mean, this planning topic, it just reminds me of Greg, who came into the office a couple years back, and he was a really successful doctor in town locally here. And, you know, he had done a great job. He had built a nice practice, had saved a lot of money. He was the type of person you look at and say, there is no way that this person would ever run out of money. And when he came in to see us, when he retired about in his late 60s, came in to see us about 78, 79 years old. And it was really a sad story. He had never done any planning, any of this income planning or this investment planning. And when Greg came in to see us, he was literally just about flat broke. And there was nothing that we could do. There was no planning that we could do. I wish there was. It was too late. And so Greg was faced with having to go back to work and just a really tough situation that late in retirement. So that's exactly an example of why planning is so important at that time.
Is there an optimal time then to start this advanced planning?
Yeah, I think the sooner the better. It's never too late to start planning, obviously, but the sooner you can grab that, the better it can be. I typically say as kind of a rule of thumb, if you're within 5 to 10 years out from retirement, that's really the opportune time where you need to put a game plan in place to get you to and through retirement successfully.
Well, coming up next, we'll talk about more things successful retirement investors never do. And later on in Global Perspective, Grant talks about the top concerns in retirement. But first, here's how you can contact Grant, Andrew, and the team at Global Wealth Management. From Social Security to taxes to not running out of money in retirement, South Florida's financial advisors Grant Conness and Andrew Costa have you covered. Join them and a team from Global Wealth Management at one of their upcoming workshops. Discover strategies that may help you maximize your Social Security benefits. Understand the potential impact taxes have on your retirement income, especially with recent changes to the tax laws. Or if you just want to learn ways to generate more income and decrease your risk, Global Wealth Management's workshops can help put you on the path toward a well-planned retirement. For more information and to register for a workshop near you, call Global Wealth Management today, 954-371-1200. That's 954-371-1200. Get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. Seats are limited and these workshops fill up quickly, so call now, 954-371-1200.
You're watching The Global Wealth Show with Grant Conness and Andrew Costa.
Welcome back to the Global Wealth Show. I'm Megan Mozak. We're here with Grant Conness and Andrew Costa of Global Wealth Management here in South Florida. Grant, Andrew, you just explained that investors should never invest without a plan. But what should we never ignore when it comes to risk?
Well, risk is a big thing, Megan, and we can't ignore risk in retirement. At that point in your life, you just can't make mistakes. You don't have the time on your side anymore. And as many of you know, when I was 19 years old, I was, my life was kind of turned upside down. I was in a car ride home with my dad, and I was actually getting picked up from college at the time. And I went to open up the car door, and immediately when I got inside, I could tell that there was just something really, really wrong. My dad was, kind of a big guy, kind of a successful guy. He carried himself a certain way, and he just looked like someone that I didn't recognize all of a sudden. And so I got into the car and I asked him, what's going on? What's wrong with you? And being the guy that he was, he didn't want to answer me. He didn't want to talk about it. And so we had quite a long drive home. I was getting picked up from Tallahassee in college. And so I kept asking him, over and over again, what is wrong with you? I mean, this was more than just a bad day. And finally, my dad just turned to me, and for the first time in my life that I can ever really remember, he completely broke down. He wasn't the type of guy to kind of show his emotion like that. And my dad said, Andrew, what's wrong is that your mother and I have lost just about, everything that we've saved, or a big portion of what we've saved for retirement, due to this tech bubble crash. And, we all remember that crash back in 2001 and 2002. It just devastated and hurt so many people. And I remember I was just sitting there and thinking, gosh, how do you even do that? How do you lose your money in that kind of a crash? I mean, how does that even work? I was 19. I don't think I really understood it. And so, that is one of the main reasons, due to that thing that happened in my life, that when Grant and I started Global Wealth Management, we just decided, we don't want that to happen to anybody else. So a big portion of our retirement roadmap review, our second opinion service, the first thing that we do is something called our risk analysis, so that everyone can come in, take their portfolio as it stands right now and understand the makeup of it, the risk of it. Is it too risky? Is it more risky than what they want?
And it's a fairly simple process, this retirement roadmap review, this risk analysis. It's really a stress test of your portfolio. We always want to find two things. We want to find your good number, what you can make in a good market, but also we want to find out what your bad number is, what you could stand to lose if we went through another 2008 type scenario. And the thing is we want to parallel, the way you sit today, where your portfolio is today, and then really define that as to what's important to you, kind of what's your mercy point as an investor. And the thing is just because everybody lost 40% in 2008, that doesn't make it acceptable. If you're someone that can't stomach more than a 5% or 10% or maybe even 0% downturn with your money, believe it or not, you can set it up to do just that. It doesn't need to be the way that everybody else is doing it. The problem is what happens is most people say they're a conservative investor and they don't go through this type of exercise. And when we go through the process, a lot of times we find out that they're, say, 5 or 10 years out from retirement, or even if they're in retirement, they might have the ability to lose 30-40% of their life savings. That's obviously not a conservative investor, so it's our job to kind of get it in line with the way that they want it to be. And the importance of doing that as an investor is, first and foremost, it gives you a lot more confidence as an investor, a lot more clarity to your situation to make sure that it's designed really the way you want it to be, so you never get into a situation like Andrew just spoke of where you're nearing retirement and all of a sudden you're losing half of your life savings. What ends up happening there is you end up having to work another 5-10 years, and that really kind of throws off the overall game plan for a lot of people as they visualize retirement.
Yeah, and I always ask, do you know the risk in your portfolio right now? Do you know that number? I mean, are you sitting there with this portfolio and do you have an idea of exactly how much you could lose if the next crash happens? I mean, we check everything in our lives. We check, the ladder, if we're going to get on the ladder to go up on the roof. You're not going to just get on it without knowing it's secure. You tie up your boat, you kind of double check the knot. You lock the door when you leave the house, you kind of double check that it's locked. You need to double check your portfolio so that when that next crash happens, you're not exposed to more risks than you want.
After the break, Grant shares with us the importance of planning for inflation. And still to come in today's Ask Global Wealth segment, Grant and Andrew answer some of your questions. First, here's how you can contact Grant, Andrew, and the team at Global Wealth Management. Stay tuned.
From Social Security to taxes to not running out of money in retirement, South Florida's financial advisors Grant Conness and Andrew Costa have you covered. Join them and a team from Global Wealth Management at one of their upcoming workshops. Discover strategies that may help you maximize your Social Security benefits. Understand the potential impact taxes have on your retirement income, especially with recent changes to the tax laws. Or if you just want to learn ways to generate more income and decrease your risk, Global Wealth Management's workshops can help put you on the path toward a well-planned retirement. For more information and to register for a workshop near you, call Global Wealth Management today, 954-371-1200. That's 954-371-1200. Get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. Seats are limited and these workshops fill up quickly, so call now, 954-371-1200.
You're watching The Global Wealth Show with Grant Conness and Andrew Costa.
Welcome back to the Global Wealth Show. In today's Global Perspectives, Grant shares the top 5 concerns facing people heading into retirement.
On today's Global Perspective, we wanted to share with you a list that we compiled from viewers of our television show, our radio show, and our live events throughout South Florida of some of the major concerns that are facing those that are planning for and living in retirement today. And the first of those concerns, by far and away, is outliving your money in retirement. How do you make sure that your money lasts as long as you do? So having a plan put in place for that is absolutely essential. And it all starts with having an inflation plan in place, making sure that you're addressing inflation as it relates to your investments. Inflation is the silent killer of all retirement plans. In fact, cost of goods double every 20 years, and you need to prepare for that. So let's just assume, for example, that you're spending, say, $5,000 or $6,000 a month in retirement. Do you think it's going to stay that way for another 5, 10, 15, or 20 years? Well, let's go back in time a little bit. So Megan, let me ask you a question. What do you think the price of gas was back in 1970?
Maybe $1 a gallon?
No, it was actually 35 cents. And I remember as a kid, they used to pump it for you, they check your oil, and they'd even clean your windshield. And that was full service back then. Now, it's $2.48 a gallon, and it wasn't even that long ago where we had $5 a gallon gas. And we know it's going up again. It's only a matter of time when that happens, and we have to have a plan for that. Now let's take a look at housing. In 1975, Megan, what do you think the average cost of a home was?
I'm going to say $100,000.
Close, but it was actually about $39,500 back in 1975. But in October 2017, it neared about $400,000 for that same home. So in the 1970s, you could buy this entire menu for $5. By comparison, I took my son to McDonald's the other day and bought him a Happy Meal, and you could barely buy that Happy Meal for $5. So inflation is a huge factor in retirement, and we have to plan for that. The next major concern that we're going to talk about is risk and volatility. You know, I talk about this all the time with clients. You know, when they're getting closer to retirement, it might be time to get off the big high risk, high growth market roller coaster ride and maybe ease into something a little bit more their speed, like the merry-go-round. Now, risk and volatility are not our enemy, but we have to have it under control, and we have to have strategies to get the returns that we need with less volatility. In fact, controlling market volatility in retirement is actually more important than your overall return in retirement. And the next major concern that we see is healthcare costs. And these can absolutely derail our retirement plan. You know, the average retiree today is going to need over $200,000 in retirement to pay for healthcare costs, and that doesn't even include Medicare. And then you need to think about long-term care. Nobody wants to think about long-term care in their life, but they need to. Think about this. You have about a 7% chance of having a fire in your house. You have about a 27% chance of getting into a car accident, and you have over a 70% chance of needing long-term care at some point in your life. Yet the vast majority of individuals, they don't have long-term care. And the reason why is because when you need it, it becomes cost prohibitive and you have to qualify for it. So you need to make sure you're addressing healthcare costs in retirement. Next, we need to take a look at taxes, and taxes are a biggie. We all know that when we turn 70 and a half, we have to start taking out our required minimum distribution, our RMD, and our retirement plans. And you need to look at a tax-efficient strategy on how to do this, how to achieve this efficiently. Now, we know that we have over $20 million in deficits right now, and the chances are higher taxes are on their way. So you need to factor this into your retirement plan, specifically your tax plan, and being tax efficient as possible in retirement. And last on the list of the 5 major concerns is the spending rate. And it is last because the rate in which you can spend your retirement savings is affected by inflation, the risk in your portfolio, healthcare expenses, and how much you have to pay in taxes. So in the financial world, we're used to going by a factor in which we call the 4% rule. So that means that if you had $1 million portfolio, say, you could take out $40,000 every single year in retirement. Well, unfortunately, the 4% rule is broken. It's an outdated strategy, and we really can't use that anymore. New studies are showing that the new 4% rule is actually called the 2.7% rule. So on $1 million, you could take out only $27,000 a year to live off of. $27,000. That's not a whole lot of money, and that's not going to cut it for a lot of people in retirement. That's why it's absolutely essential that we create income strategies for clients that are going to address these things like inflation, risk, healthcare costs, and taxes. So I ask you, what have you done to address these type of concerns with your retirement plan?
Coming up next on the Global Wealth Show, Andrew and Grant answer questions from viewers just like you. Stay with us.
From Social Security to taxes to not running out of money in retirement, South Florida's financial advisors Grant Conness and Andrew Costa have you covered. Join them and a team from Global Wealth Management at one of their upcoming workshops. Discover strategies that may help you maximize your Social Security benefits. Understand the potential impact taxes have on your retirement income, especially with recent changes to the tax laws. Or if you just want to learn ways to generate more income and decrease your risk, Global Wealth Management's workshops can help put you on the path toward a well-planned retirement. For more information and to register for a workshop near you, call Global Wealth Management today, 954-371-1200. That's 954-371-1200. Get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. Seats are limited and these workshops fill up quickly, so call now, 954-371-1200.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to take me on vacation?
Will you be there for my ball games?
Will you teach me your values? You'll be able to play with me.
Oh, help me go to college.
How will I remember you?
You're watching The Global Wealth Show with Grant Conness and Andrew Costa.
Welcome back to the Global Wealth Show. I'm Megan Mozak, and I'm here with Grant Conness and Andrew Costa of Global Wealth Management right here in South Florida. We want to spend the last few minutes of the show today answering some of your questions for Grant and Andrew. So you guys ready?
Yeah,
We're ready.
let's do it.
Okay, first question comes from Frank in Boynton Beach. He says, I'm thinking of retiring in a couple of years. I've been contributing to my company 401k and have an account with a discount broker, but I've never really had a financial advisor. What question should I be asking when looking for an advisor?
Well, that's a great question, Frank, and we appreciate that. I think the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're aligning yourself with a fiduciary advisor. And a fiduciary advisor is an advisor that is required by law to work in the best interest of the investor or the client at all time. And you might say to yourself, well, shouldn't every advisor that I'm trusting to manage my life savings be required to work in my best interest? And the answer to that is actually no. The other type of advisor is what they call a suitability broker. And what a suitability broker is required to do is what's suitable for the client. So what does that mean? So if you fit inside this box and you have a certain net worth or risk tolerance or goals or objectives, that broker can sell you that investment. Now, that investment may or may not be in your best interest, but since it was suitable for you, it's okay. Well, if you went to the fiduciary advisor and you asked for that same investment, they might not be able to recommend that to you, even though it was suitable. If it wasn't in your best interest, then it might not be appropriate for your particular situation. So I think that's definitely the first place to start. The second thing that I think would be important would be make sure that that advisor is taking the time to put a formalized written retirement plan in place, something that's going to get you from point A to point B. Not a salesman that's going to sell you an annuity or a mutual fund or a stock, but one that's really going to develop that plan and then stay on top of that plan along the way. So I think those are the two most important things, in my opinion, that you would want to do when you're looking for an advisor.
Yeah, and Frank, what I would add to that is just make sure that they specialize in exactly what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Advisors specialize in different things, just like doctors and attorneys and accountants and everybody else. And so if you're looking to, grow your money and you're younger and you're trying to focus on accumulation and growth and risk, maybe there's an advisor out there that's the best and specializes in that. If you're looking to retire and set up a plan and create income, there's definitely certain types of advisors that specialize in that area. And that's, of course, the area in which we specialize here at Global Wealth.
Our next question comes from Nate in Coral Gables. He says, I have around $300,000 saved in 401ks, but I've changed jobs a few times, and some of them are still with the companies where I used to work. I will probably work another 10 years. What can I do?
Well, Nate, that's a really good question, and we see this a lot. You switch jobs, you had a 401k, you kind of leave it alone, you start the new job, you start your new 401k, and what happens is you end up with maybe 1, 2, 3 kind of dormant, what we call dormant 401ks. They're all doing their own thing, they're all probably working a little different. They all have their own set of fees and expenses. And so when you get into a situation like that, what you want to do is you want to roll your 401k into what's called an IRA. It's a tax-deferred rollover. There won't be any taxes due. And what happens is, the benefit of that is, number one, you will have the entire gamut of the investment world at your disposal. You will be able to invest in just anything that you want through that IRA. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, anything really. And so that's the first thing, because in your 401ks, you're limited to just the options that they're providing inside of their 401k. So that's a big benefit that you have. The second thing that it does is it allows you to put together an actual cohesive strategic plan. When you have all these different 401ks sitting out there, they're all working different. Now you can start to put together a cohesive plan around your investments on these 401ks. And the final thing is it can really help you lower your costs by moving them into an IRA. These 401ks can often be very costly. There's nothing much you can do about it when you're working there, but when you have a chance to lower your costs, you might as well do it.
And I'd say another thing too is, if you obtain the age of 59 and a half, it actually gives you a lot more flexibility. So if you have a 401k, you can roll that 401k into an IRA. Even if you're still working for your company, you can still get those contributions and those tax deferrals, but it allows you to open up the doors. So if you're 61, 62 years old or older and you're still working, you might want to consider that as a rollover while you're still working.
Grant and Andrew, our next question comes from Nancy in Lake Worth. She says, my husband and I just moved here from another state. Most of our money is with a big national firm. We figured they have an office just about everywhere. Now we're not sure that our investments are what we thought, and we're not sure what to do. How do we get a second opinion?
Well, Nancy, if you're feeling that way at all and you're unsure at all, whether you are or you're not, it's always good to get a second opinion. We get second opinions on everything we do in life, whether we're looking for a doctor or we're fixing something on our car. We're going to check on second opinions. And with investments, you need to get second opinions, especially when you feel like you do, Nancy. And so that's something that we do at Global Wealth Management. We do what's called our Retirement Roadmap Review. It's kind of our second opinion service. And when you come in and take advantage of that, the first thing that we do is we want to understand the risk inside of your portfolio. Is there too much risk? We look at the fees to make sure, is there too much cost and fees that are associated with your portfolio? We look at the income on the portfolio. Are you generating enough income? Is there enough income for when you're retired? Healthcare, taxes, inflation, all of that, Social Security, those are all the second opinion services that we'll do when you come into the office.
And at the end of the day, what it does is it allows you to kind of assess, one of two things will happen. One thing might be, you find out you're in great shape and you kind of have that confidence of knowing that. And the other thing that happens is we find out that needs to be adjustments to your plan, and we make those necessary adjustments, and then it gives you a lot more confidence and clarity as an investor to make sure that your retirement savings are on track.
Grant, Andrew, thank you so much. A second opinion does sound really valuable. So if you have a concern or if you have a question you want answered on a future show, visit askglobalwealth.com or call the number on your screen. We could use one of your questions on a future show. And don't hesitate to act on the information you've heard today. It never hurts to call, even if it's just for a second opinion. Don't wait, call now. For Grant Conness, Andrew Costa, and the team at Global Wealth Management, I'm Megan Mozak. Have a great day and an even better retirement.